Hi traders, I'm Fajar Maulana. Welcome to the leading program DCFX US Stocks. Today I'm joined with Mr. Sebastian, founder of Share Focus. How are you today, Mr. Sebastian?
Good, thanks.
Okay, traders. Today we're going to discuss about the stock market lately. So, Mr. Sebastian, how is it? What's happening today?
Last week and this week, the beginning of this week, the US companies are starting to report their financial results for the first quarter. And so far we have 13. So from the stocks which you can trade in DCFX, 13 companies have reported their first quarter results. And that includes a lot of the financial companies, the banks, and the brokers like Goldman Sachs, the credit card companies, but also the big technology, Google, Microsoft, as well as some of the consumers, Procter & Gamble, Coke and McDonald's.
Okay, I see. So they are reporting their earning and revenue report, right?
Yes.
Okay. So how were the previous results of the report, sir?
Well, we saw in 2021 very strong sales growth, very strong growth from the companies. Because 2020 there was a collapse. So in 2021 there was a big strong growth, even up to 20% for the sales growth. And then in 2022 we saw a big slowdown.
Okay.
And so by the end of 2022, by the fourth quarter of 22, the sales growth for all of those stocks was only 3%. So from 20% it went down all the way to 3%. That's the fourth quarter.
On the fourth quarter of 2022.
Yes.
Okay. So how about the first quarter of 2023, sir?
Yeah, the first quarter of 2023 is a big rebound. So very strong growth again, which I think is a bit of a surprise. So as I said, fourth quarter, the sales growth was 3%. And then the sales increased from the fourth quarter to the first quarter by 2%, which means 8% for a year, 2 times 4. And then if you take the first quarter sales compared with a year ago, the growth is 8%. So the sales growth increased from 3% to 8% in the first quarter. So it's almost triple the growth. It's very strong.
So it's growing, right?
It's growing again, yeah. The growth is starting again. So we had last year a slowdown, and then now it's picking up again.
It's picking up again. So based your analysis, sir, why do you think the growth is picking up?
Yeah, it's interesting because remember that we were talking last time about the inflation.
Yes.
And so we have had much higher commodity prices, raw material prices, and then that led to inflation. And then last year, a lot of the companies are increasing their selling prices. And so I think that's why now, because of the higher selling prices, we're seeing the faster sales growth starting in this year.
Okay.
So when companies raise prices, sometimes the result will be a surprise. It will be higher than expected, and that seems to be what's happening.
Okay. That's interesting. So in terms of the specific companies, so who is not doing so well?
There's 3 companies where the sales growth is minus.
Okay.
So the first quarter on average is 8% plus, but there are 3 companies which are minus. One is Goldman Sachs. The sales growth is lower than a year ago, but Goldman Sachs had sales increase from the fourth quarter to the first quarter. So I think it's still quite positive for Goldman Sachs.
So.
But then there's 2 other companies. If we look at Verizon, Verizon had negative sales growth, and the sales was lower in the first quarter compared to the fourth quarter. So Verizon is a bit weak. And then IBM, the sales is flat compared with a year ago, so 0%. But it's down a lot from fourth quarter to first quarter. So it's also quite negative. So those are the 3 less positive ones.
Less positive.
Goldman Sachs, Verizon, and IBM. And from those 3, IBM is the weakest because most company, the sales now is higher than it was before COVID, pre-COVID. It's higher now, about 25% higher on average. But for IBM, the sales is still lower than 2019 pre-COVID. So that's the weakest one, I think.
Okay. So now we'll move on to the best ones. So who is doing the best?
The best one is interesting. The best one is the financial companies. Yeah.
Okay.
So remember, in the last few years, it's all been about technology. the technology companies like Google, Microsoft, that's where the fastest sales growth has been. But in the first quarter this year, it's definitely in the financials. So we see quite strong growth from American Express. 22% increase compared with a year ago. And then the fastest is JP Morgan. So JP Morgan, remember the average is 8%, which is good. American Express is 22%, and JP Morgan is 25%.
Wow.
So yeah, it seems to be like the bank and the credit card financial company, that's where the strongest growth is at the moment.
Okay, good. So, sir, the last one. What do you think the market reaction will be based on the situations?
I think the market, remember the stock market has been negative for the last 1 year, which makes sense because the sales growth slowed down almost to zero. But now the sales growth is getting faster again. And I think it's surprising. Remember, a lot of people expecting recession. They thought the economy is going to be maybe minus, so it could be negative. But then in the first quarter, it's actually quite fast. So I think it should be a positive reaction. Remember, we've got lower inflation, as we discussed last time, and now we have faster sales growth from the company. So better results, lower inflation. I think it should be definitely positive for the market.
Okay, this very good information actually about the stock market lately. Okay, traders, so that's the information's update about the stock market from Mr. Sebastian. Thank you, Mr. Sebastian, for joining us today, and thank you for our viewers. And don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel, and don't forget to follow our social media accounts. And I'm Fajar Maulana, and our guest, Mr. Sebastian. See you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.